What is up, bros? Josh here. Today's video is all about the Tier 9, currently work in progress Russian destroyer, the Nuestrashimy. Now, I will call it, because I'm going to pronounce it terribly if I say the entire name, I am going to call it News for short, as I did in the original video. So this is the second version we have seen. Again, it is still currently work in progress, so things are subject to change. Although since last time, there has been a pretty big change to it. Also, the way it's going to be released has also been announced. It's going to be released by Steel, so it's going to put it around the USS Black's price of steel, so between that 13 to maybe 15k steel. So in this video, I will not only talk about the ship itself, I will also talk about what my thoughts are on the ship being for steel, because that is something that you're going to have to take into thought of. Let's go over the ship, as well as is it going to be worth it kind of thing in the future. But let's go over the biggest changes. Not much has changed outside of one massive change, which is the heal, but we'll briefly go over the stats and just do a quick reminder. I'll show you my captain build, as well as upgrades, as well as some gameplay. Hit points 24,000. Now I'm showing you my captain right now. We are using Ovechkin, so things that I am showing you are with these captain skills. So I am picking priority target, last stand, survivability expert, so it is boosted a little bit, 400 instead of 350 per tier. Concealment expert, radio location, and then picking up expert marksmanship. So just thinking about that, just keep that in mind when going through this. So for the ship itself, 24,100 life. That is so much, so much for this tier. It is even on the line, if you continue on the tech tree line, it's even more than the Grozovoy. Now, I don't believe this captain has survivability expert, but still, it's a big health pool to deal with, and that is one thing too. Now, I will obviously, when this is a 19-point captain, I will pick up survivor or superintendent, but with this big health pool and how the heal works, potentially BFT and or torpedo armament might be solid to pick up, and you'll kind of see in game what I mean by those massive heals. I do like having survivability expert on almost all of my destroyers, because you do want to live. 2x2 130 millimeter shells. This is pretty standard for the Russian destroyers, so you're not needing that inertia fuse, but 130 millimeters, you'll see what this AP can do in this game. I'll show you as well. 4 seconds though, and 2 sets of 2. Now, I have talked to Wargaming about this. It's come up multiple times. These guns are so inconsistent. Sometimes they will shoot absolute lasers. If you've ever played the tier 8 Russian destroyer, the Ognavoy, it seems pretty consistent. I don't know what it is about the news guns, if their gunners are drunk sometimes, but this is one thing I just want to be brutally honest with you. The guns, for some reason, are just so inconsistent. You will kind of just be good all of a sudden, and then you will just see wonky Mikasa level dispersion, and you'll even see that in some of the games, or in this game as well. Most of the time they do all right, but sometimes you just get thrown away, and it can affect you with only having 2 sets of 2. A 12.8 kilometer range, you don't need AFT. Torpedoes, though, it's kind of a pseudo torpedo boat. 106-second reload. That's why the torpedo armament might be a good upgrade instead of survivability expert. 10 kilometers, 65 knots, but one thing these things do is they do hit relatively hard, almost 18,000 damage. AA is pretty solid. You do have the AA consumable, but you're not going to be speccing this thing out full AA, but you can defend yourself. 36 knots, 700 meters on the turning radius, 3.7, and one of the main things about this ship is it's extremely stealthy at 5.6, one of the lowest at the tier. Quickly going over modules, this is what I'm running. Now, this is something that in the original review I did on the news, it's kind of just good at everything, and it's one of those ships that you will be looking down at your keyboard to make sure you don't fat finger the wrong consumable, because it basically has everything. So I'm clicking all the way over to I to get your speed boost instead of hitting U to get your heal, because you need to be very careful to not use your heals, because this is one of the biggest things that has changed with this ship. So you have your damage control party, obviously, and these are all premiums, so you do start with normal, 1 charge, 3 charges, 1 charge, 1 charge. Again, I don't have superintendent, but you will need it on this ship. 2 smokes though with the puff, kind of normal smoke, normal Russian smoke. You do have AA consumable, which is fantastic. You can defend yourself because you're a quote-unquote torp boat, and the massive heals. So just clicking over to, let's say, the Tashkent, the normal Russian heal, if we look down, is 100. Oh wait, this is without the flag as well. 109 health per second for 28. So the heal can be, you know, near 3,000 life per heal. That's pretty good, right? Well, the news kind of just absolutely shits all over that, and it can be almost 500 for 20 seconds. And if we go up and click on the flag, which will give us 20% more, and we bounce back, I'm just going to click enable so I don't forget that in the future. If we bounce back, we are almost at 600, 600 HP per second for 20 seconds. So that is almost 12,000 if a perfect roll happens on how much damage. And you can potentially get 3 of those. So your actual effective health pool, and this is one of the reasons why potentially Survivability Expert is something you could give up, is your heals are crazy. HP per second, almost 600, 20 seconds on that. That's almost 12,000. You're into 11 something. With Survivability Expert, your actual effective health pool is into the 50Ks. So you have basically an effective health pool with all the heals. This is why you want Survivability Expert so much. Is that of a tier 6 battleship. So as a tier 9 destroyer, that's pretty nuts. So that's something to keep in mind too when talking about, is this ship worth it or not for steel? And of course, speed boost always fantastic. Upgrades, this is what I am running right now. Main armament mod 1, the extra AA consumable or duration time, you could pick up whatever you want. Speed boost if you want that. I am basically stacked up a little bit extra AA. Whenever I do play work in progress ships, I tend to go a tad more of an AA build just because everybody wants to kill the test ship. So one thing you could easily pick up, those aiming system mod 1, that could obviously help me with the dispersion and could help you with the dispersion. But when I do test ships, I tend to go a bit more on the AA. Steering gears, now this is a big ship. One thing that I did notice is you do take a few extra torpedoes, but it doesn't matter. You can heal all that damage back, basically. So, but you do want to take that, avoid as many as possible. Obviously, consume it. And then I went with torpedo. I think this is probably the best way to go, since most of your damage is going to be through torpedoes, but you do see a good balance of guns and torpedoes. You could easily go main armament if you want. I would pick up torpedo, though, because you want to be pumping out those as much as possible. So let's bounce over to some gameplay. We'll go over the news and kind of show you what craziness that heal. You can put yourself into situations that you normally wouldn't with the DD, and this thing kind of just laughs at taking damage. So here we are in game, and this isn't my best news game I've had. This isn't my worst. I think this is pretty average, but it does show the insanity that this heal is. And kind of, I'm going to get into a situation where I take a big hit, but I just laugh it off and come back, and it's no big deal. One thing to really think about the ship, and let's just break down what this actual game is. There is a couple radars. We are top tier, but there is a CV. But really, with the CV, you are a big ship, so torps are a danger. But having that AA consumable is really nice. But this is kind of what the matchmaking we're going against. But you will be using, this ship is kind of labeled as a DD or torp destroyer. Obviously, it's labeled as a destroyer, duh, but it's labeled as kind of a hybrid. But more on the torp side. But you do have guns that can defend themselves with that 4-second reload, but there's only 4 shells. Again, you will see the guns in this game, but you're not going to be afraid to shoot. Obviously, you won't be going gunboat, but you can, obviously, if you force repairs, you can go and start gunning it down and getting a little bit extra damage. You're kind of just going to be using everything, but very low detection, pretty solid torps, decent reload for Russian, and again, you have a lot of tools in the shed. Now, the original version we kind of got with this ship, I just wasn't excited about it because I thought, you know, it was a ship that was just, all right, it's good. It's a good ship. But it wasn't exciting. It didn't have a weakness, and maybe that was its strength, is that it just didn't have a weakness. There wasn't anything unique about it, and honestly, this one actually makes more sense to be in the line than the Udaloy does. I kind of wish that they would have moved the Udaloy to a premium ship and make this the tier 9 tech tree ship. I was hoping that would be the thing they did, but obviously they didn't, because the news is basically an Ogdovoy that has a heal and kind of bridges the gap between the Ogdovoy and the Grozovoy tier 10. It makes much more sense than the Udaloy. Udaloy is just like this weird cousin that just is in the family, but it's kind of weird at the same time. It doesn't really match, and you're like, man, you look a lot like the mailman. But this makes more sense. But with the new heal, it puts you into situations and makes it way more unique and kind of gives you the ability to do different things. But is it enough to warrant steal? Now, that's another topic that we have to talk about, is this has been announced as Tier 9 and as being Steel. And what does that mean? Well, let's look at what else is at Tier 9 and what else is there for Steel. And does this bring something that's unique enough to warrant a Steel price? And what do I think about that? Well, the USS Black, the other Tier 9, the USN Destroyer, is the only DD in this game that has smoke and radar. Now, you can obviously take the Chung Mu, but you have to give up smoke to have radar. So I think the USS Black brings this kind of uniqueness to it and something that may be worth it, and I think really is, in that between that 13 to 14k Steel range. Obviously, if you have the coupon, it's much cheaper. But now with the news being released as Steel, is it going to be worth it in the end? And the original version, no, absolutely not. I thought it was going to be a fantastic Steel or free XP ship. Honestly, if I was a betting man, I thought it would have been a free XP ship. We've had battleships, we've had cruisers. It made sense to make a ship that wasn't overly strong be a free XP ship. Wargaming could have easily just made this a free XP ship with the old version. I think it would have sold well. I think people would have liked it, and I think we could have moved on and then worked on the next ship. Them calling out this being Steel completely changes it up, and I'm kind of worried at the same time for this ship, because Steel is so valuable and hard to get when it comes to this game, and when you're comparing ships like the Stalingrad or the Borgonia or, you know, other things like that, I have a feeling that, especially if they announce another ship, we just got the currently work in progress Georgia being announced, and we don't know how that's going to be sold. With other big ticket items being Steel and having so few people actually getting enough Steel to purchase a ship, I'm worried that this ship will just kind of be forgotten. It'll turn into kind of the, what's a good example of a ship that kind of came out? Like, no one knows what the Vanguard is, the Tier 8 Royal Navy battleship. No one bought that ship. It didn't stand out. It was kind of just a battleship, right? So I'm kind of worried that this will end up being that ship for Steel ships. Just no one has it because it didn't really stand out. But now with the heel, all right, let's talk. I'll probably end up getting it, and now I have enough Steel easily to get the Borgonia, and now I'm just starting to think, well, do I want to save my Steel and potentially get this? That wasn't with the original ship, but it is now. So that kind of is a good sign for me. I do think that maybe the heel is a little too crazy, and you'll see what I mean. Now, it is good that there's only a maximum of 3, that is with premium and with survivability expert. Again, very exciting game so far. This is the life of a Torp destroyer. I can't stand Torp destroyers, but I do like this is a bit more of a hybrid DD. Again, I won't play it that much, but I think it's definitely worth kind of getting if you have the extra Steel. I think this is a bit more of a ship that if you are in the 1% of 1%, and you have kind of the extra Steel laying around, or if you really enjoy the Ognivoy, some people really enjoy the Ognivoy, this is going to be a fantastic ship for you. But for me, as a Torp DD, it's just a bit too much of a kind of an overall Torp DD. But you'll see my guns right here, and this is a good example of what the guns kind of when I'm talking about them being kind of drunk, and obviously a really low detection here too. But Kiev is going to continue to shoot, and we will then post up. Again, don't be afraid to use your guns. We're going to pop this up here. The AP actually does pretty well, and so right there, that seems pretty normal. And it seems like, you know, no big deal, no big deal. And this is how the majority of your shells are going to be. And hopefully we can get a good example here, but I think we do later in this game. So that's kind of normal dispersion right there. But then every once in a while, you'll just get this wonky salvo of just like the worst dispersion that's ever happened to man. But you do have the guns, you can use them, and obviously they can do solid damage. You'll see me with the 130s too. They have plenty of pen. Again, you don't need inertia fuse to make that happen, so you can have a much more fun build. But you can also see the heal that I have right now. If I was in a different ship, I'd be popping my heal. With this, you're kind of sitting around waiting to take more damage because it's almost wasted, as you can see with a bunch of other ships that have heals like that, especially with Royal Navy cruisers. You kind of don't use on a small heal. You kind of wait for a big one to get the value. And you're going to see me kind of push into these Musashis, and you'll see me wanting a heal. That is for sure. But again, it is going to be a unique play style. It's not going to be a play style for everyone. like not even when I'm talking about, I am not a torpedo boat. This is kind of labeled as a torpedo boat when it comes to its description. It's more on that. It isn't quite full boat into a torpedo boat. That's too many boats in one sentence. Like the IJN DD line, the torpedo line, but it's not quite as a hybrid as, let's say, like the German destroyers, Pan Asian, or even USN. So these are a bit, it's a bit more niche, and with it being not only a niche class or a niche destroyer or playstyle, you then have a very, very small amount of people that will even be able to purchase it. And so I feel like this is going to be a pretty rare ship. It's going to be up to people that have, and I think we test the AP here too, and because you can see kind of the dispersion right there. That was kind of a wonky dispersion, but now see how, like, that's kind of what I mean right there. And it seemed like it would just be, I don't know, like right there seems good. Like this is what I'm trying to say, like trying to get good examples. I kind of forgot how some of this went, but there's just some wonky salvos you get, and there's kind of the normal salvo at 2500. That's a pretty damn good salvo for a DD. And you'll see what those 130s can do to a Neptune in a little bit. But like, I don't know, it seemed, I don't, at least maybe I'm being hard on this because I'm trying to get good analysis of it, but I don't remember that style of dispersion being normal for DDs, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm just kind of giving this a hard time because I'm, you know, trying to find a kind of a weakness to it. But overall, the guns are kind of a little wonky, as you can see with that one salvo right there. I didn't zoom in on it, but there's 3 in one spot, one way to the other. But overall, though, this version of the ship is so much better than the last one. So much better than the last one, because the last one was just a safe ship. It was just safe. There was nothing that really, it didn't stand out doing anything. It wasn't really anything that was too exciting. It was just a ship that didn't really have a weakness and was just all right. This one definitely does give it an identity, so I do appreciate that, and I think it definitely does give it some more value. But the original one, it was just like, this is a perfect free XP ship, sure. Now that it's labeled for steel, it really needs to have something, and I think this version does. It may even have too much of an identity with the insanity of the heal. Again, up to 3 heals, potentially going almost rolling 12,000 per heal, is pretty nuts. Just having that effective health pool, it is seriously a zombie. I will give the shout out to Flammo on that. Now I can't call it the zombie ship, basically what it is. So I'll have to think of some other name, but it is something that just, if you do not kill it, it will come back to life and it will haunt your dreams. So this is something you really have to focus it. This is another thing that we kind of had to deal with the arms race mode that was going on in ranked, having to deal with those style of ships. But here, this is why this ship is potentially worth it, and it's situations like this. This is something you could only have done with this ship, and this is the reason why I wanted to show this game. Now, I got a little unlucky here. He ended up getting a heal just enough, but obviously, drive-by, easy peasy, no big deal. But I thought I would actually dunk him with this one salvo, so it feels bad. But we're taking a hit. We're down to 14k, down to 10k, down to 3k, and then we're going to be back up. So a normal DD would be dead here. Normal DD would be absolutely dead here. Feels bad, man. Stuck at 12k, that torpedo belt. But as you can see, that heal going all the way back up, down to 3k. And what are we going to do? Down he goes. And about, what, 10 seconds ago, we were at 3k life, and bingo bango, back up to 13k. So this is the only ship, and this is the reason why I kind of wanted to show this game. Obviously, a Neptune is a dirty monster against DDs, especially with this kind of armor. And there's the 130s as well. And again, there we go. And as you can see, I have a heal in 55 seconds. We're basically playing on our 3rd life of Destroyer. This is the only ship that could have done this in the entirety of the game, and the only thing that could still be alive to play out the rest of this game. Obviously, honestly, the rest of this game is actually quite boring. This is basically all we do. I do a tad more damage, but I do want to show you how much life we are up to after taking so much damage. And we end up just winning this game. It's not really that big of a deal, so we end up getting the middle control again and end up kind of killing out the entire game. But I do want to kind of show you this last heal because remember, we've gone through my entire health pool, healed up about 10k, so we've basically taken 34k damage, and now with 5 seconds left on this, obviously this is why you would want Superintendent, because you can get yourself into these situations. You want Superintendent, and so remember, we went from full life, well, basically full life, down to 2k, back up to about 13, down to 2k again, 3k again, and now we are back up to, what did we end up at? 10k, almost 11, almost 11,000. So we are on our third destroyer. We basically respawned. We called in our Apex Legends partner. They've sent us back down, and we're on to our third destroyer of the night. But the rest of this game is pretty boring. Everything just ends up dying in front of us. We pump out a little bit more damage, and we end up getting 135k with 3 kills. But look at that, a nice little balance. You know, a bunch of shell hits, torp hits. We even shot down a plane, even though we aren't set up for planes. 3 kills, a bunch of citadels on that Neptune, so that's always awesome. So you do have that going for you. And we ended up third on the team. Our CV ended up doing pretty solid, as well as our Jean Bart farmed a bunch of damage. But one of the things I want to show you is how much damage we received on this third one. Almost 34,000, and we still had 10k left. So getting into that 30, 40, you know, you're going to get a Dreadnought basically every game in this. So if you want a good Dreadnought farmer and you have some steel, sure, why not? You're basically going to get a Dreadnought every game you play this. Obviously, we can't. Our work in progress ships, we don't get any rewards, so we don't get detonations, Krakens, you know, any of that kind of stuff. But overall, this ship is much different with just an overall, I would say, it's a small change because only one thing has changed, but it definitely turned this ship from a boring, safe ship to something that is, it now has an identity and a uniqueness, which I do like. But still, it being steel, it only is available for a small amount of players, and is only going to be, I think, purchased by a small amount of players, because it's a unique play style, it's a niche play style, and it's being sold to a player base that is also very small. So kind of some ups and downs to the news. Overall, though, I do like it more as the ship is now. I find that the heal might be a tad too strong, it might just be a tad too big. But overall, I think we will see something relatively close to what we see now. And again, it'll be for steel. No set price for the news yet. I will assume near the price tag of the USS Black. Usually things like that are, well, since this has more tonnage, it's a bigger ship, tends to cost more. So maybe near the 15,000 steel mark, that would be my guess. But still something around there. So you kind of have to weigh that if you want it. So start playing ranked if you can. Got a couple more days. Or get that clan going, start playing clan battles, or pray to RNG that you get a bunch of super containers, because you can pick up this ship then. But anyways, guys, want to give a quick review. It's not that quick. This is a pretty long video. Want to give you guys a review of the news, the preview of the news. Again, work in progress, so stats are subject to change. I think we'll see something relatively close to what we see now as the final version, probably relatively soon. No set date on when this will be sold, and no set price still. So anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.